What kind of a peace do I mean, and what kind of a peace do we seek? Not a Pax Americana enforced on the world by American weapons of war, not the peace of the grave or the security of the slave. I am talking about genuine peace.
Caspar, what a pleasure it is to meet you. I mean, when I saw the film, I almost fainted. I mean, you look so much like Kennedy.
Yeah.
When did you realize yourself that you have such a resemblance?
Well, I was doing an acting course with Frank Corsaro, the iconic leader of Actor Studio, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. And we were doing a scene from a completely different movie. And he suddenly exclaims with his gruff voice, "You have to do Kennedy one day." and I thought, okay, great. And I'd heard it from other Americans as well. I've never heard it in Denmark. But saying you have a resemblance, I think a couple of years ago I looked quite a lot like Bobby. It's very hard for me to see, but that was what people were saying. So I started looking at the speeches that the Kennedys gave, both Bobby and Jack. I mean, you might as well, now that people say these sort of things, you might as well be ready should the opportunity happen.
So you prepared before the film even started production?
Oh yes, I was listening. I mean, not a lot, but listening every now and again to the speeches of the Kennedys on YouTube and talking along, trying to get this very, very quaint Massachusetts, New England, Boston dialect that the Kennedys had, which is fun because it has even a bit of British English as well, because their father was this Anglophile ambassador to Britain that they went to before World War II. So it is a very specific way of speaking that was, being a language geek, was wonderful to work with. And obviously then when the audition turned up,
it's pretty rare that we see a Dane playing an iconic American president in a film. How did they even find you?
Well, I know they were looking for a long time. I think that, Pablo Larraín, who is the director, was very, very adamant that it had to be someone who looks preferably exactly like him in order for the whole setup to be to be as good as it could for Natalie Portman to portray Jackie's intense story. So I understood that they had been looking for a while throughout the UK and the Americas as well. And then a friend of mine here in Denmark, incidentally called Gordon Kennedy, who's a famous actor and comedian here in Denmark. He said to me, "I heard that they're looking for a Kennedy, and you have a resemblance. Can't I alert them to your website?" Which he, of course, did, and then they very quickly sent me a scene to self-tape. And I was touring as Hamlet in Istanbul with a Danish theatre company there, did it in the hotel room on my phone, and they were happy with that and asked me to do another scene once I came back to Copenhagen, and then offered me the part, which was wonderful. Yes. Wow. And I mean completely out of the blue. Yes.
So how long did it actually take before you had to show up on set?
Oh, there was a couple of months after that. Yes, okay. yes. With, I mean, it's time to read about Kennedy and study the way of speaking even more. And obviously since that I'm completely obsessed, funnily enough, because it is so interesting. I mean, I've gotten through I don't know how many books. There's obviously the whole what actually happened on November 22nd, who was behind it and all that, but even more than that, the enigma that is Jack Kennedy. I mean, completely devoted to family. He loved his children. And at the same time, just a monstrous adulterer with
charlatan,
lots of women. He was a symbol of health and youthfulness, and in actual fact, I mean, he was on so many different types of medication that he could have, I don't know, kept a small pharmaceutical company alive. So I mean, there are so many paradoxes about him and his upbringing and how he landed in the presidency. It's incredibly inspirational, incredibly interesting. So I'm still reading. At the moment, I'm reading his book, Profiles in Courage, which he wrote and got the Pulitzer Prize for. I mean, okay, he was brainy as well. All the interiors we did in Paris, and then exteriors we did in and around Washington, D.C. And arriving in the U.S. and channeling Kennedy was shocking. The emotional hold that he still has on every American is really, really moving. Everybody has a specific personal tale to tell about their relationship to Kennedy. And when we were shooting the arrival in Dallas, obviously there was hundreds of extras. Everyone wants to have selfies afterwards, of course, and everyone wants to tell their story. And people are very, very I mean, it's such a trauma in the soul of America, this horrible, horrible killing. He was such a symbol of so many things that Americans are proud of: generosity, empathy, feeling. I mean, the ethos that those that have must help those that haven't got. His insistence on the United Nations being a tool for world peace. I mean, there are so many things that Americans were proud of in him, and that was so shocking that he had to die at home in America. Yeah.
Killed by his own people.
Yes, yes, yes. So I mean, I was shocked to find, as a European, that this is a wound that hasn't healed yet.
Of course, the film belongs to Natalie Portman.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely.
she was Oscar nominated,
Yes, yes, yes.
and has really. I mean, she's on the front page on the poster.
Oh God! I mean,
Yeah.
the film is Natalie Portman.
It's
Absolutely.
Natalie Portman.
Yes, yes,
How
yes.
did your work with her come along?
Oh, it was wonderful. I mean, so inspiring, and so she is such a generous artist, and she is such a hardworking inspiration, and she was extremely welcoming. I mean, obviously, I came from Denmark, having not done such a major picture before, but there was no question of not welcoming me as an equal, which I'm very grateful for. And no, I mean, she was absolutely wonderful. And obviously, funnily enough, she is going through this intense, terrible, terrible trauma of losing everything. Her husband, her kid's father, her life in the White House. But the scenes that, well, apart, of course, from the assassination itself, but the scenes we were doing together were light. I mean, there was attending a concert in the White House with Pablo Casals playing the cello, dancing in the White House. So in that sense, I guess it was almost a bit of recess time together with me before the actual horrors of living through losing Kennedy. Yeah.
Did you and Natalie Portman have time to develop your characters together and kind of position yourself? Because she's also, of course, read all the material, I guess, from both characters from the real world. So did you have time to develop your scenes together?
I say that working in the scenes, there was time. I mean, Pablo, the director, is extremely meticulous. He would, I mean, we would do, arriving in Dallas, we would do the scene as it was, and then in the the writhing mess of arriving and people all around us, he would he would come up to me and say, grab hold of her and tell her to be more, to sell you more. I mean, this was the start of the re-election campaign. So, I mean, in that sense, the work was in development all the time, which was extremely inspiring and wonderful. And obviously, I mean, when you're having a meal in between shots together, you talk about how do we make the best of these scenes. Absolutely, yeah.
Well, the aftermath. The film came out, became
Yes,
a great success, was all over the world.
Oh, God, yes.
What has happened to you afterwards?
It's been fantastic. Yeah, I've visited LA numerous times since.
Because of this part.
Because of this, I mean, only because of this part. Absolutely, yeah. And was invited to all sorts of do's and found myself giving Kennedy's Dallas speech only last weekend at an event in the Hollywood Hills. I mean, for the French Film Festival in LA called COA, it's called City of Lights, City of Angels. There was a speech, of course. It may even have been in his jacket pocket, ready to give in Dallas, and the incredible relevance of that speech today. I mean, it addresses misinformation as a problem in a democracy. I mean, we're talking about an election which has been full of fake news in the Americas. Brexit has just happened in the UK. It turns out that there's all sorts of data processing going on in order to target people through their Facebook profiles to help certain ideologies politically. So I mean, misinformation is incredibly important today. It was apparently important in '63. He addresses the necessity of learning and reason in American leadership. So people listening to that speech, written in '63, today as a voice from beyond, is incredibly powerful. Yeah, in the world of today. So in that sense, I find myself channeling some very wise thoughts and words, which is a gift. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.